The sky above Calder Prime was no longer blue crystal and silver light. It burned. Clouds of fire rolled across the horizon as another wave of enemy ships descended from orbit, their shadows stretching like black knives across the land. Commander Zexai pressed his crystalline hands against the wide observation window of the defense tower. His body refracted the red glow of the burning city below, every facet of his form catching firelight like shattered glass. He had lived for nearly 3 centuries, through long ages of peace. His people had spent their lives on art, music, and quiet science. War was something they studied in dusty libraries, not something that thundered across their skis. Now his beautiful world was dying. "Commander," a trembling voice called. It was his aide, a young officer barely past her first century. "The northern cities are gone. Energy readings show complete destruction. Nothing could have survived." Zexai closed his faceted eyes. The northern cities had been home to millions of Kari, teachers, healers, children, gone in a matter of minutes, erased by the merciless fire raining from the stars. The invaders called themselves the Vorthon Empire. They were reptilian giants with scales like steel and eyes like cold jewels. They had arrived without warning 6 days ago, blotting out the sun with their colossal warships. 17 other worlds had already fallen to their hunger. Now it was Calder Prime's turn. "Sir," the communications officer's voice cracked with fear. "The Vorthon flagship is broadcasting again. They demand surrender. They promise to spare what remains of our cities if we obey." Zexai turned, scanning the room. His officers were not warriors. They were scholars and builders who had been forced to wear the uniforms of soldiers. Their hands, made for paintbrushes and instruments, now shook over weapon consoles that could do little more than scratch the armor of the enemy fleet. Their shields were crumbling. Their small patrol craft had been vaporized on the first day. There was no hope of victory. Zexai's voice was quiet but steady. "Open a channel." "To the Vorthon." "No," he straightened, his crystalline body catching the dying light. "To everyone, to anyone who might hear us." The comms officer blinked in confusion, then obeyed. The equipment hummed to life, its signal racing outward into the vast dark. Zexai leaned close to the transmitter. He spoke slowly, his voice heavy with grief. "This is Commander Zex of Calder Prime. Our world is under attack by the Vorthon Empire. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons of war. We have never harmed another race. But we are being destroyed. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We will give all we have, our art, our science, our knowledge. We only ask to live." As the words left his mouth, another explosion shook the tower. Fire rose in the distance. He fought the urge to collapse. The message carried away into the black. Most who heard it would delete it at once. The Vorthon Empire was too strong. No one dared oppose them. No one wanted to invite their wrath. But on a blue and green world orbiting a yellow sun, far at the edge of known space, someone was listening. "Earth Defense Command, Washington Arcology." Admiral Kate Morrison leaned forward in her chair, her gray hair tied in a strict knot. At 52, she had made peace with a hard life of impossible decisions, but her eyes still carried kindness when no one was watching. "Play it again," she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan, young and sharp, tapped controls. The desperate alien voice filled the command room once more. Morrison's jaw tightened. She remembered the Kari. She had met their ambassadors years ago, beings of living crystal whose art could make hardened soldiers weep, who shared knowledge freely, never asking for anything but friendship in return. Now their world burned. "What's the Council's stance?" Morrison asked. Sullivan hesitated. "They say it's a local matter. Intervention could spark war with the Vorthons. They refuse to act." Morrison swore under her breath. The Galactic Council was ancient and cautious, more concerned with treaties than lives. They would let a world die rather than risk their comfort. She turned to the tactical display. "What ships are combat-ready?" "The Defiance, Liberty, and Retribution," Sullivan replied. "All running training drills under Captain Lisa Park." Morrison's lips pressed into a thin line. "Get me Park." Minutes later, the hollow screen flickered to show Captain Lisa Park, sharp-eyed, short black hair, a scar on her jaw from pirate raids a decade earlier. She looked like a woman who had seen too much but would never back down. "I heard about Calder Prime," Park said without greeting. "Are we moving?" "The Council forbids it," Morrison answered. Park's expression did not change. "And what do you say?" Morrison thought of the Kari, gentle, luminous beings. She thought of her grandchildren safe on Earth. She thought of what it meant to be human. "I say the Council are cowards," she said finally, "and someone needs to remind the Vorthons that murder has a price." Park's lips curved in the faintest of smiles. "Then I'll have my ships ready in 2 hours." "This won't be official," Morrison warned. "If you go, Earth can't protect you. You'll be alone." Park's smile sharpened. "Admiral, we're always alone when it matters. That's what makes us human." Back on Calder Prime, Zexai stood at the balcony of the command tower. The sun sank behind smoke-filled skis. His world screamed in silence below. The desperate transmission had been repeating for hours, but no reply had come. "Commander," his communications officer whispered. "Something at the edge of the system, 3 ships approaching fast." Zexai's heart skipped. "Vorthon reinforcements." The officer shook her head, staring at the strange, angular designs on her display. "Not Vorthon. Computer identifies them as human." The word seemed almost mythical. The humans were a young, violent race whispered about in the council chambers. Too primitive, too reckless, not to be trusted. "And yet, are they answering our message?" Zexai demanded. "Yes, they're broadcasting now." The main screen lit up, and for the first time in hours, Zexai felt something he thought he had lost forever. Hope. The face that appeared was a human woman in a dark military uniform. Her features were stern, but her eyes blazed with determination. "This is Captain Lisa Park of the Earth ship Defiance," she said. "We received your message, Commander. We're here to help." Zexai's crystalline hands trembled as tears refracted light down his cheeks. Someone had come, someone had answered. But in orbit above his world, the massive Vorthon fleet was already turning to meet the intruders. Their 12 dreadnoughts loomed like mountains of iron. And the humans had brought only 3 ships. The Vorhan flagship was a monstrous thing, a fortress of black metal and green fire, its surface bristling with plasma batteries and torpedo bays. From its throne chamber, Warlord Krexar watched the 3 human ships glide into view. His scales gleamed in the sickly light of the war room, half his jaw replaced by scarred metal from battles long past. "Unknown vessels," hissed his comm officer. "Angular hulls, primitive reactor signatures, they call themselves human." Krexar's yellow eyes narrowed. Primitive or not, they had dared to issue an ultimatum. To him. "Transmit," he growled. The screen flickered. Captain Lisa Park appeared. She stood straight-backed, hands clasped behind her. She was no giant, no warrior carved from steel. She was small by comparison, fragile, fleshy, yet her gaze burned with a steady fire. "This is Captain Lisa Park of the United Earth ship Defiance," she said, each word calm and sharp as a blade. "You have 1 minute to cease your assault and leave this system." Silence fell in the Vorhan war room. Then Krexar's laugh filled the chamber, metallic and cruel. "1 ship, 3 at most, against the fleet of the Vorhan Empire. Do you know who I am, human?" His scaled claws scraped the arms of his throne. "I am Krexar, breaker of worlds. This planet belongs to me. You will leave, or I will grind your ships to dust." Park didn't blink. 50 seconds. The warlord froze. Her tone was not pleading, not bluffing. It was absolute. "Arrogant little insect," he hissed. "You dare threaten me." 45 seconds. Something in her voice unsettled even him. There was no fear, no hesitation, only certainty. He slammed a claw down. "All ships, destroy that human vessel." On the Defiance's bridge, alarms screamed as the Vorhan fleet began to turn, their weapons powering up with deadly green light. Hundreds of fighters launched from the carriers like swarms of metal insects. "Numbers?" Park asked. Her tactical officer, Commander Danny Brooks, rattled them off with grim efficiency. 12 dreadnoughts, 47 cruisers, 200 fighters. They outnumber us 15-1. Park's eyes never left the screen. What about their weapons? Plasma cannons, torpedo tubes, layered energy shields. Standard Vorhan configuration. "Predictable then," she said. "Predictable gets beaten." The Defiance was no beauty. Where alien ships curved like sculptures of light, the human vessel was all steel angles and brutal design. Armor plating, exposed rail guns, missile bays that bristled like porcupine quills. It looked exactly like what it was, a weapon built to win ugly. "Launch all fighters," Park ordered. Signal the Liberty and Retribution. Begin attack pattern Bravo. Danny blinked. Captain, the Liberty and Retribution are 10 minutes out of formation. Park's lips twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. They've been behind those asteroids for the last 10. Activate cloak release. Space rippled on both flanks of the Vorhan formation. Two massive human warships shimmered into sight, their experimental stealth systems shutting down. The Liberty and Retribution powered weapons as their engines roared. Brooks stared. They were in position this whole time. "Never show all your cards, Commander," Park replied. On Calther Prime, Commander Zexai and his officers watched the display in stunned silence. They hid their ships in plain sight," whispered his aide. "Not hid," Zexai murmured. His crystalline form reflected the light of the distant battle. "They stalked like predators." He could not look away. The humans had not come with diplomacy or apologies. They had come with teeth. The battle began in a storm of fire. Rail guns on the Defiance thundered, launching tungsten slugs at a fraction of light speed. The first Vorhan cruiser's shields flared, then shattered. A slug punched straight through the vessel's spine, tearing it apart in a blossom of fire. "Direct hit," Brooks shouted. "Don't celebrate," Park said coldly. "Kill the next one." The Vorhan dreadnoughts returned fire. Beams of searing plasma carved across the void, explosions hammering against the Defiance's shields. The ship shook like a struck bell. "Hull integrity at 80%, reported the engineer. "Good enough, hard to port, target their carrier." The Defiance spun like a dancer, sliding between plasma bolts that should have gutted her. The main rail gun roared again. A 2-ton slug ripped through the Vorhan carrier's hangar bay, igniting fuel stores. The ship exploded in a fireball that lit the system brighter than the sun. On the Liberty, Captain Ryan Clark's voice crackled through comms. "We've disabled 3 cruisers. Fighters are breaking formation." On the Retribution, Captain Alina Martinez added, 30 enemy fighters destroyed, moving to intercept dreadnought formation. Park's eyes stayed on her screen. "Good, keep the pressure on, make them bleed." But the Vorhans were no fools. On the flagship, Krexar snarled at the chaos of the battle. 3 ships, only 3, had already destroyed assets he could not replace. His pride burned, but his mind remained sharp. "Concentrate fire," he roared. "Half the fleet on the lead vessel, tear it apart." 50 enemy guns turned as one, space lit with beams and detonations. The Defiance staggered under the onslaught, armor buckling. "Deck 7 breached," shouted damage control. "Fire suppression engaged, hull integrity down to 60. Brooks looked at his captain. "We can't take much more of this." Park's voice was steady. "Then we won't target their flagship." "What, Captain, if we—" "You heard me. Put everything we've got into that monster. Now." The Defiance's rail gun pivoted, locking onto Krexar's dreadnought. All missile bays opened, launching smart warheads that twisted and danced through enemy fire. Plasma cannons lit, scorching across space. The human ship dove straight at the heart of the Vorhan fleet, every weapon blazing. Commander Alex Turner, leading the Defiance's fighter wing, pushed his small craft through the chaos. His squadron darted between dreadnought beams, their missiles cutting enemy fighters to ribbons. "Remember, people," Turner called, his voice calm over the comms. "We're not here to look good, we're here to make the lizards look dead." His wingmate Hayes laughed as she spun through debris, firing a missile into an enemy cockpit. "Copy that, Commander, dead and ugly." The Vorhan pilots were skilled, but they had never fought anything like this. Humans didn't fight clean. They cut through debris fields, used wreckage as cover, dove into suicidal angles, and somehow came out alive. For every human ship hit, 3 Vorhan ships burned. Krexar's bridge shook with alarms. "How is this possible?" he roared. "They only have 3 ships." His tactical officer trembled. "Their tactics, Warlord, they are unpredictable. They fight as if." "As if what?" "As if they do not care if they live." Krexar's scales rippled with unease. On Calther Prime, Zexai and his people crowded the command center, watching the impossible unfold. Human ships dancing among giants, leaving trails of burning wrecks. "They fight with madness," whispered Elder Morani. "They fight for us," Zexai answered, voice heavy with awe. "For people they do not know. They came here to die with us or to win." Another Vorhan cruiser exploded, fragments raining fire across the void. But the cost was brutal. The Defiance shuddered as a plasma bolt tore across her bow. Alarms blared. The engineer shouted, "Main rail gun down 20%, plasma coils overheating, missile tubes 3 and 7 offline." Brooks gritted his teeth. "We're bleeding, Captain." "So are they," Park snapped. "Target that dreadnought again." The rail gun fired. Another Vorhan Leviathan cracked apart, its bridge vanishing in fire. Krexar slammed a clawed fist into his throne, half his fleet destroyed, dozens of ships burning, and yet the humans fought on. His pride screamed for vengeance, but his instincts whispered another word: fear. "Warlord," his second-in-command begged, "we must withdraw. They fight like demons. If we stay, we lose everything." Krexar's fangs bared. Never, he thought, never retreat. But as the screen showed another dreadnought shattering under human fire, survival won out. "Signal the fleet, prepare hyperspace jump, withdraw at once." The Vorhan fleet began to pull back. On the Defiance, cheers erupted as enemy ships turned tail. "They're running," Brooks shouted. "They're actually running." Park's eyes narrowed. "Not yet, they're not. Pursue. Push them to the edge. I want them to remember Earth every time they look at the stars." The bridge crew roared in approval. The chase began. But before the humans could finish their pursuit, the void rippled again. 30 more human ships dropped from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Sleek battleships, carriers, and frigates, Earth's rapid response fleet, Admiral Morrison at their head. Zexa gasped, his crystalline body glowing with renewed hope. "The humans," he whispered. "There are more of them." On the flagship Revenge, Morrison's voice thundered across every channel. "This is Admiral Kate Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. Any Vorhan ship that fires another shot will be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to retreat." The sky above Calther Prime cleared for the first time in days. The thunder of orbital bombardment was gone. Only the smoldering remains of cities remained, their crystalline towers shattered into jagged ruins. From the balcony of the defense tower, Commander Zexai gazed upward. Where once Vorhan dreadnoughts had hung like hungry wolves, only drifting wrecks remained. The void glittered with burning fragments, metal coffins tumbling endlessly in the dark. The humans had done this. His crystalline eyes shimmered with tears. His aide, young and trembling, whispered, They actually drove the Vorhans away, with only 3 ships at first. Commander, what kind of beings fight like that?" Zexai's voice was low, awed, the kind who do not know how to surrender. High above, the surviving Vorhan ships limped toward hyperspace, battered and fleeing. Behind them, Earth's rapid response fleet spread across the system, hunting stragglers. The war was not over, but the battle for Calther Prime had been won. On the human flagship Revenge, Admiral Morrison stood tall on her bridge. Around her, hollow screens glowed with tactical reports. "Enemy retreat confirmed," reported Sullivan, his face pale but triumphant. "Their command ship is damaged. They won't risk returning soon." Morrison nodded grimly. "Signal all ships, secure the system, deploy shuttles with medical teams and engineering crews to the surface. These people need more than our guns." She turned to the comm officer. "Send this message to Calther Prime's Defense Command. Humanity stands with you. We're sending aid." Hours later, the skies of Calther Prime filled again, not with warships, but with descending human shuttles. Their hulls glowed orange as they cut through the atmosphere, streaking over the ruined capital. Zexai stood on the landing platform with a small honor guard of survivors. His body flickered with uncertainty. His people had never welcomed soldiers before. They had never needed to. Now the future of his world walked toward him. The first shuttle touched down with a hiss of steam. Its ramp lowered and humans emerged. They were shorter than the Kari, denser, their movements full of restless energy. Where Kari bodies glowed with translucent light, the humans were solid, opaque, clothed in practical armor and uniforms. At their head walked a woman with brown hair tied back, eyes sharp with weary compassion. She carried a satchel, not a weapon. "I am Dr. Amy Walsh," she said, her translator humming softly. "We're here to help." Zexai stepped forward, his crystalline hands trembled. "Our medical centers were destroyed, thousands are wounded, many more homeless." Walsh's expression hardened, her voice brisk. "Then we start now. I'll need open space for a field hospital, water supplies, and every injured person brought here immediately. My team will handle triage. Behind her, human medics unloaded crates, unfolding portable shelters, scanning equipment. They moved with practiced precision, every motion purposeful. Zexai blinked. He had never seen such urgency. His people healed slowly, carefully, with rituals and songs. These humans attacked wounds as if they were enemies to be defeated. In the ruins of the capital, Kari citizens gathered, staring in silence as human engineers arrived. They carried tools and machines that looked crude compared to Kari elegance, but they worked with shocking speed. One human, small, dark-haired, energetic, knelt by a shattered power conduit that once pulsed like living crystal. He rubbed his hands together with excitement. "Oh, this is going to be fun," he said. The Kari engineer Yexlan approached cautiously. "Our power systems are delicate. They took centuries to grow into balance." The human grinned. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Tony Martinez, Earth Engineering Corps. Don't worry, I don't break things, at least not without fixing them better after." Yexlan tilted his crystalline head. "You do not fear damaging our systems." "Fear," Martinez laughed. "Buddy, in my job, if you're not breaking something once in a while, you're not pushing hard enough." He studied the conduits running scanners. "Wait, your power grid thinks." "Of course, it uses neural pathways to decide where energy flows when demand changes." Martinez's grin widened. "A self-optimizing power plant? That's beautiful. Yeah, we can work with this." In the streets, the Kari watched as humans distributed supplies. Food packets, clean water units, generators. Children peeked from behind shattered walls, staring at these strange, solid beings who moved so quickly, spoke so loudly. One young girl, her crystal body cracked with injury, tugged at her mother's arm. "They are ugly," she whispered, "but they saved us." Her mother hushed her gently. "Not ugly, child, different. Remember what the elder says, beauty wears many faces." Nearby, soldiers from the Defiant stood guard, their weapons ready. They did not relax, even in victory. Some Kari flinched at the sight, unused to living under the shadow of armed protectors. Others felt relief, comforted that such predators now stood on their side. Night fell, fires still smoldered across the capital. Commander Zexai walked through the makeshift hospital, watching human medics tend to wounded Kari. Their hands moved with efficiency, binding crystalline fractures with strange materials, using machines that hummed and beeped. Dr. Walsh stood over a patient, her brow furrowed. She looked up at Zexai. "Your people are healing faster than expected. Their bodies repair themselves in ways I've never seen." Zexai nodded weakly. "We were never built for war, but we endure." Walsh's voice softened. "Enduring isn't enough, not anymore." Zexai hesitated. "What do you mean?" Walsh wiped her hands. "The Vorhans will come again, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not this year, but they'll come, and when they do, you'll need to fight." Zexai's crystalline form dimmed. "We are artists, scientists, we have no warriors." Walsh's eyes met his. "Then it's time to learn." Elsewhere in the city, Elder Morani sat in her ruined garden, a broken sculpture beside her. A human artist, David Kim, helped repair it. He studied the crystalline shards, his calloused hands clumsy but gentle. "You want to rebuild it as it was," Kim said, "but it'll always be fragile. If another attack comes, it'll shatter again." "It is beautiful because it is fragile," Morani replied softly. Kim shook his head. "It can be beautiful and strong. We can reinforce it, change the design. It won't be the same, but it'll survive." Morani studied him for a long moment. "That is what you humans do, isn't it? You take fragile things and make them harsh." Kim paused. "No, we take harsh things and try to make them beautiful." The elder was silent. For the first time in 8 centuries of life, she did not know which way was better. At dawn, the defense tower buzzed with new messages. Reports came in from dozens of Kari settlements across the world. Zexai listened as his aide summarized them. "Commander, 67 settlements request the same thing, human military advisors. They wish to learn how to defend themselves." Zexai's crystalline body flickered with unease. "We are a peaceful people. We have no army." "They want to change that, sir. They say without the humans, we would all be dead." Zexai looked out the shattered window at the rising sun. For thousands of years, peace had been their way. But the Vorhans had shown them a harsh truth. Peace could be destroyed in hours. Perhaps it was time for something new. That evening, a shuttle arrived at the defense tower. Captain Lisa Park stepped onto the platform, her uniform scorched from battle. She looked tired but unbroken. Zexa approached, bowing deeply. "You saved us. My people owe you everything." Park shook her head. "Don't thank me. Thank Admiral Morrison. She sent us knowing the council wouldn't approve." Zexai's eyes glowed faintly. "Why would you risk so much for us? You do not know us. We have nothing to offer." Park's voice was quiet, steady. "Because we could not stand by and watch you die. That's not who we are." Zexai's voice caught. "Then who are you, Captain?" Park's gaze hardened, her scar catching the light. "Humans, and when someone threatens the innocent, we answer." But in the shadow of space, not all eyes looked on with gratitude. Far above Calder Prime, on a hidden relay station, a Vorhan spy transmitted frantic reports back to his empire. He described the impossible: 3 human ships breaking a fleet of 60, reinforcements arriving, an entire world saved. And the message carried one final warning, his voice shaking with fear. "The humans are not what we thought. They are worse, much worse." The chamber of the Galactic Council stretched like a cathedral of stars. Its domed ceiling shimmered with thousands of lights, each one representing a world under the Council's protection. Long, curved rows of alien delegates filled the room, their bodies a living tapestry of color, shape, and sound. Some glowed, others pulsed with bioluminescence, others clicked mandibles nervously. At the center, raised on a circular dais, stood 3 figures. Ambassador Helen Price of Earth, her posture straight and sharp as a blade. Beside her, Admiral Kate Morrison, her uniform dark, her eyes hard with resolve. And with them, Commander Zexai, crystalline body refracting the chamber's cold light. The Council had summoned them in emergency session. The humans had broken every protocol by acting without authorization, engaging the Vorhan fleet, and worst of all, winning. The chamber buzzed with anxious voices until Councillor Vexmill of the Andromedans spoke, his translucent body shimmering like liquid glass. "The facts are clear. Humans attacked without authorization. They destabilized an entire sector. This is reckless behavior that endangers us all." Ambassador Price's lips curled in a thin smile. "We destabilized nothing. We saved a world while the Council debated paperwork." Murmurs swept the chamber. Elder Core of the Transcendent Collective floated forward, her voice like wind through crystal chimes. "Your methods are disturbing, brutal. Such violence has no place in civilized space." Admiral Morrison leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Civilized? Tell me, Elder, what is civilized about sitting here safe while children burn?" The chamber erupted in 100 voices, some supportive, some outraged. Councillor Hexara of the Symmetry cut through the noise. "The Vorhan Empire has already filed complaint. They accuse humanity of using prohibited weapons and tactics. You risk war with them." "Good," Morrison said flatly. "Let them be afraid." The words dropped into the chamber like a meteor. The noise rose again, furious, frightened. Commander Zexai stepped forward, his crystalline voice amplified. "Honored councillors, I speak not as a soldier, but as one whose people nearly died. When the Vorhans came, you said it was a local conflict. You said intervention was too dangerous. My people were left to burn. But the humans came. They fought when no one else would, and now we are alive." His crystal form glowed with rising emotion. "The Council did nothing. Humanity saved us." The silence that followed was heavy. Some delegates bowed their heads in shame. Others narrowed their eyes, frightened. Councillor Vexmill finally spoke. "Perhaps, but what happens next time? What happens when humans decide another people must be saved? Who stops them? Who decides?" Ambassador Price's voice cut like steel. "We decide, because when innocents cry out for help, we don't wait for permission." The chamber erupted again, but Price stood unshaken. In the shadows of the chamber, whispers grew among smaller species, representatives. The humans fought the Vorhans to a standstill. They say only 3 of their ships destroyed dozens. If they can do that, what else are they capable of? Fear coiled through the council hall like smoke. Outside the chamber, Zexai approached Morrison quietly. "They fear you," he said. Morrison's eyes were tired. "They should." Zexai tilted his head. "And yet, they also envy you. They wish they had acted. Now their weakness is plain for all to see." Morrison didn't answer. She knew the truth. Every victory came with a price. Humanity had won, but they had painted a target on their backs. Back on Earth, news of the battle spread like wildfire. Holoscreens blazed across cities, showing grainy footage of the Defiance diving into a Vorhan dreadnought formation. Commentators shouted over each other, some calling it proof of humanity's greatness, others warning that Earth had just made a dangerous enemy. In military academies, recruits signed up in record numbers, their eyes shining with dreams of fighting among the stars. Factories doubled shifts to build new ships. Politicians debated endlessly. Was Earth becoming a savior or a warmonger? And far away, in shadowed war rooms of other empires, generals studied every scrap of data they could find. They fight without restraint. They weaponize chaos. They win battles they should lose. Some whispered admiration, others whispered terror. Weeks passed. On Calther Prime, rebuilding continued. Kari children laughed again in streets rebuilt with human steel and Kari crystal. Human medics and Kari healers worked side by side. Engineers fused art and machinery into strange, beautiful hybrids. But change carried shadows. In the newly built military academy, Kari youths drilled under human instructors. Their crystalline bodies moved with grace, but now their hands held energy rifles. Commander Zexai watched, torn between pride and dread. Sergeant Rodriguez, a blunt human instructor, saluted him. "They're learning fast, Commander. They understand what they're fighting for." Zexai's form dimmed. "Are we doing the right thing, teaching them to kill?" Rodriguez's eyes were steady. "Teaching them to protect, there's a difference." Zexai wasn't sure. Meanwhile, in the halls of the Vorhan Empire, Warlord Krexar knelt before the High Council of Scales. His body was bandaged with grafted steel, his pride bleeding. "You lost 60 ships to 3 humans," one elder hissed. "Explain." Krexar's jaw tightened. "They fight like nothing we have faced. They are reckless, unpredictable. They do not fear death." Another elder's eyes glittered. "Then they are dangerous." "They are monsters," Krexar growled, "and monsters must be destroyed." A dark murmur rolled through the chamber. Plans began to take shape, plans of vengeance. Back on Calther Prime, Elder Morani sat with Dr. Amy Walsh in the garden. The elder studied a new sculpture, a child reaching for the stars, sheltered by the shadow of a great human ship. "Change is the price of survival," Morani said softly. "We can mourn what we lost, but we must also celebrate what we gained." Walsh looked at the sculpture with weary eyes. "Do you regret that we came?" The elder considered. "Regret, no, fear. Yes, you have changed us, Doctor, and you will change the galaxy." She paused, her crystalline features catching the morning sun. "The question is whether that change will save us all or destroy us." In Earth's defense headquarters, Admiral Morrison stood before a vast holomap showing human fleets across space. Green dots marked patrols and alliances. "Admiral," Sullivan reported, "we've had 17 more requests for protection treaties this week. Colonies, trade, guilds, whole civilizations. They want us as guardians." Morrison studied the glowing map. Humanity's reach was spreading faster than she had dreamed, but so were the risks. "What about the Vorhans?" she asked. Sullivan's voice dropped. "Reports show their fleets withdrawing from border regions and raider activity, vanishing wherever our ships patrol." Morrison allowed herself a thin smile. Fear is a good deterrent. But Captain Park, standing beside her, frowned. "Ma'am, is fear what we want, to be the species everyone dreads?" Morrison didn't answer, because even she wasn't sure. And far out in uncharted space, something stirred. Vorhan scouts had not returned from patrols along the galactic rim. Unknown signals whispered in the dark, signals no one could identify, stronger than Vorhan, stranger than human. And they were moving closer. The command tower of Calther Prime vibrated with alarms. Commander Zexai rushed into the central chamber, his crystalline body scattering light in jagged patterns across the wall. His aide, pale and trembling, pointed at the display. "Something has entered the system. Not Vorhan, unknown configuration." The holographic projection showed objects sliding through the void. Long, needle-shaped silhouettes unlike any ships Zexai had ever seen. "How many?" he demanded. "7, they're scanning us." The room went silent. The Kari had barely survived one invasion. Another arrival could shatter what little remained. "Contact Admiral Morrison at once," Zexai ordered. On board the human flagship Revenge, Morrison stood at the holodable, jaw tight as the new signals came in. "Visual," she snapped. The screen flickered, revealing sleek vessels like shards of obsidian. Their surfaces rippled as though alive, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No insignias, no heat signatures like standard reactors. "They're not Vorhan," Sullivan murmured. "And they're not in Council archives either, entirely unknown class." Morrison's eyes narrowed. Unknown meant dangerous, unknown meant opportunity. "Captain Park," she said over comms, "status." On the Defiance, Park answered, her voice calm. "Weapons hot, fighters ready. If they sneeze wrong, we'll know." "Hold fire until we're certain," Morrison ordered. "Let's see what they want." In the streets of Calder Prime, panic rippled through the survivors. Children clung to their mothers as news spread. Another fleet has come. The people who had just begun to rebuild now faced the terror of losing it all again. Dr. Amy Walsh moved through the hospital tents, calming the wounded. "Listen to me, the humans are here, the defenses are strong. You survived the Vorhans, you'll survive this too." Her voice steadied them, but inside, fear clawed at her stomach. She knew what the sensors said. No one recognized these ships, and in space, the unknown was never kind. The Council demanded an immediate report. Their transmission filled Morrison's war room, voices overlapping in alarm. Councillor Vexmal was first. "You see, you provoke chaos, your reckless actions draw new threats." Ambassador Price's reply was ice. "You think they came because of us? They came because predators always come when they smell weakness. You'd rather hide and hope they pass you by." Elder Kor floated forward, her voice shaking. "What if this is worse than the Vorhans? What if you have doomed us all?" Morrison cut in. "What if they're simply watching to see who runs and who stands?" The chamber erupted into noise again. But in her heart, Morrison already knew the answer. Hours passed. The unknown fleet did not attack. They did not answer hails. They only circled the edges of the system like sharks around bleeding prey. On the Defiance, Brooks muttered, "They're toying with us." Park's eyes never left the screen. "Or testing us. Either way, we'll be ready." Zexai joined her on the bridge, his crystalline form flickering with unease. "Why do they wait?" he asked. Park answered bluntly, "Because they can." Finally, a signal came. The sound was unlike anything the humans or Kari had heard. A vibration that rattled bones, a static whisper that seemed to echo inside the skull. Translation systems struggled, symbols spilling across screens. Then a voice, cold, metallic, almost human but twisted, filled the air. "We are the Draction. We have watched your war. We have measured your fury. Humanity interests us." The bridge froze. "Do you come as allies?" Morrison demanded across open channel. Silence, then the reply. "We come as witnesses, to see if your fire burns long or dies quickly." The signal cut. The alien ships vanished from sensors, not jumping to hyperspace, not accelerating, simply gone. The aftermath was a silence heavier than battle. Brooks whispered, "What the hell was that?" Zexai's voice trembled. "Predators, watching to see who is worthy." Park exhaled slowly, "And we just made their list." On the planet below, rumors spread faster than truth. Survivors whispered that the newcomers were gods or demons or something worse than Vorhans. Some began to look at the humans with fear, as though their presence had summoned these shadows. Elder Morani voiced what many thought. "Perhaps the Council was right. Perhaps by bringing you here, we have invited more danger." David Kim, the human artist, set down his tools. His voice was quiet but unshaken. "Or maybe it doesn't matter. Danger comes whether you invite it or not. The difference is who stands beside you when it arrives." Later that night, Zexai sat with Morrison in the command tower. They spoke in low tones, the sky outside still flickering with wreckage from the battle. "What were they?" Zexai asked. Morrison shook her head. "I don't know, but they weren't here by accident. They saw us fight the Vorhans, and now they're deciding whether we're prey or rivals." Zexai's body dimmed with unease. "If they return." "They will return," Morrison said, "and next time they won't just watch." In the weeks that followed, changes spread like cracks in glass. The Kari trained harder. Young cadets carried rifles with grim determination. Human instructors drilled them relentlessly. Songs of peace gave way to chants of survival. But not all Kari approved. Protests began in smaller settlements. Crystalline voices cried out, "Humans bring war, humans change us." At the same time, other species sent envoys to Earth. Some begged for protection, others demanded humanity withdraw. The galaxy was splitting into those who wanted the humans as guardians and those who feared them as conquerors. And far beyond, whispers of the Draction spread, a race unknown, powerful, and watching. On Earth, Admiral Morrison stood once more before the Defense Council. Holomaps glowed, showing new construction across shipyards. Vorhan forces are retreating. Pirates scatter when they see our colors, but now we have something worse, the Draction. They have technology beyond our understanding. They disappeared from sensors like ghosts. One councilman leaned forward. "Can we fight them?" Morrison's reply was stark. "Not yet, not alone, but maybe with allies." "Who would ally with us now?" the man scoffed. "The council hates us." "Not everyone," Morrison said. "Some worlds are asking for protection, some are asking for training. We have a choice, build an empire or build a shield. Either way, we'd better decide fast." On Calther Prime, Zexai stood in the rebuilt academy, watching young Kari soldiers drill under human eyes. A cadet approached him, Yexaisna, the orphan who had lost her parents in the Vorhan attack. "Commander," she asked, her crystalline voice sharp, "are we becoming monsters like the humans, or guardians like them?" Zexa had no answer. He only knew that the galaxy was changing, and the Kari were changing with it. That night, a hidden Vorhan outpost intercepted fragments of the Draction signal. Krexar himself listened in silence. When it ended, his scales rippled with unease. "These humans," he muttered, "we thought them dangerous, but if the Draction take interest in them..." His eyes hardened. "Then perhaps we are all already doomed." The galaxy did not sleep after the Draction's message. Whispers spread through trade routes, markets, and palaces. A new power has awoken. Some called them Watchers, others Predators, but all agreed on one thing: when the Draction appeared, whole fleets vanished. On Calther Prime, Commander Zexai felt the weight of these whispers every time he walked through the rebuilt capital. His people stared at him with new eyes, not as an artist, not even as a commander, but as a man who had spoken to humans and lived. That fact alone made him different. "Commander," one young Kari cadet asked, "if the Draction come, will the humans fight for us again?" Zexa hesitated. "If we fight for ourselves first, yes." In orbit, the Defiance was docked with human and Kari engineers crawling across her scorched hull. Captain Lisa Parks stalked the repair bays, scars on her jaw catching the harsh light. Rodriguez, her chief engineer, waved her over. "Captain, we've integrated their crystal matrix into the power grid, efficiency up 30%. Park raised a brow. "And the downside?" Rodriguez smirked. "It learns. Last night it rerouted power to the crew quarters because the matrix decided they were too cold. It's trying to take care of us." Park shook her head. "A ship that tucks us in at night, that's either brilliant or terrifying." Rodriguez chuckled. "Probably both, ma'am." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Earth ships shadowed the retreating Vorhans. Recon squadrons reported something strange. Vorhan warfleets avoiding direct contact, even retreating at the first sign of human presence. Morrison reviewed the reports with Sullivan. "They're scared," Sullivan said. "Scared animals bite hardest," Morrison replied, "and Krexar won't swallow this humiliation forever." As if summoned by her words, encrypted signals arrived. Fragments of Vorhan communications, intercepted by Earth intelligence. Sullivan translated quietly. "They speak of allying with the Draction." Morrison's blood went cold. "The devils want to make a deal with demons." Back in the council chamber, debate turned into chaos. Councillor Vexmill thundered. "You see, the humans provoke escalation. Already the Vorhans seek darker allies. You must stop, before you doom us all." Ambassador Price's eyes blazed. "No, the Vorhans didn't crawl to the Draction because of us. They crawled because they're cowards who tasted defeat, and now they're begging someone stronger to fight their battles." Elder Core trembled. "And what if the Draction agree?" Price didn't flinch. "Then we'll fight them too." Gasps filled the chamber. A dozen voices cried outrage. But behind them, in the lesser rows, smaller species whispered with something else, hope. For the first time, someone had stood against monsters and survived. On Calther Prime, human and Kari forces trained side by side. Soldiers practiced in scorched fields outside the capital, their chants echoing across the crystal plains. Human drill sergeants barked orders, Kari cadets responded with crisp discipline. But not all welcomed it. A group of Kari protesters gathered outside the academy, holding shards of broken crystal aloft. "Humans bring war," they cried. "Humans change us." One young cadet, Yexisna, stood watching. She clenched her rifle tighter. Her parents had died in the Vorhan attack. To her, there was no choice. "Commander," she asked Zexe later, "are we guardians or are we becoming killers?" Zexai's crystalline form dimmed. "Guardians protect, killers destroy. Sometimes the line is thin, you must walk it carefully." In the markets of Nexus Point, spies met in shadow. A Vorhan agent with scaled skin, cloaked in shadows, slid a data crystal across the table to a hooded figure. "The humans think themselves saviors," the Vorhan hissed. "But the Draction will crush them. Deliver this to your masters." The hooded figure lifted its face for a moment. Its skin rippled like liquid metal. Eyes like hollow voids gleamed. "The Draction do not serve," it whispered. "They consume." The Vorhan froze, realizing too late he was not speaking to an ally, but to the very monsters his empire sought. He did not leave Nexus Point alive. Back aboard the Defiance, Brooks ran simulations. The results chilled him. "Captain, if the Draction fleet we scanned returns in force, we can't win. Their stealth tech makes cloaking look primitive. Their weapons, we don't even understand what they fired." Park didn't look up from the tactical display. "So we learn, we adapt, that's what we do." Brooks exhaled, "Even if it kills us." Park finally looked at him, her scar twisted into a faint, grim smile. "Especially if it kills us." At night in the ruins of the Crystal Gardens, Elder Morani sat beside Zexe. Stars glimmered faintly above. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "What?" "The shift, the way the galaxy bends. The humans came and nothing will ever be the same." Zexai's voice cracked. "Is that good or bad?" Morani closed her ancient eyes. "Neither. Change is never good or bad, it simply is. What matters is who survives it." Then came the first skirmish. A Kari convoy escorted by 2 Earth frigates was ambushed on the rim of the system. At first, they thought it was Vorhan raiders, but the enemy ships moved differently. Faster, colder. Draction. The humans fought hard, railguns and missiles tearing space apart. But the Draction weapons sliced through matter like glass through water. 1 Earth frigate was split in half in seconds. The survivors limped back, screaming warnings. Morrison listened in silence to the recordings. Ships vanishing from sensors, weapons carving lightless scars through hulls, voices cut off mid-scream. Sullivan's face was pale. "Admiral, if they come in force." Morrison closed her eyes. "Then we show them what it means to wake humanity's fire." On Calther Prime, shuttles descended once again, this time carrying soldiers in full battle gear. Not for aid, for war. Zexai stood watching as squads of humans unloaded heavy weapons and supplies, their boots thudding against the crystal ground. "You fight so hard," he said to Park. "So violently, why?" Park's eyes were steel, because predators only understand one thing, pain. Zexai's crystalline form shimmered faintly, "And if pain is not enough." Park's voice was low, "Then we make it enough." But in the deep black beyond their scanners, fleets of needle-shaped ships gathered, their numbers multiplying. They whispered across the void in voices that rattled stars. "Humanity burns bright, we will test their fire." The alarms rang across every outpost, every shipyard, every human vessel in the sector. Hundreds of unknown contacts streamed into the system. Draction. Admiral Morrison stood rigid on the bridge of the Revenge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Red icons filled the screen, blotting out Calther Prime's orbit. Sullivan whispered what no one wanted to say. "There are too many." Morrison's voice cut like steel. "Send the order, all ships to battle stations. We hold the line." On the surface of Calther Prime, panic rippled through the rebuilt capital. Kari families ran for shelters, their crystal bodies glowing with fear. But in the new academy, young cadets stood tall with rifles in hand. Commander Zexai walked among them, his form shimmering faintly. You wanted to be protectors. This is the moment. Stand firm. Stand with the humans. If we fall, let it be fighting. Beside him, Yexaisna gripped her rifle, her young face hard with determination. We will not hide, not again. The Draction appeared in orbit like a storm of knives. Hundreds of needle-shaped ships slipped from the void, their surfaces swallowing light. They moved in eerie silence, no engine flares, no heat trails, just shadows gliding forward. On the Defiance, Captain Park stood with her crew as the enemy filled the screen. Brooks swallowed. They outnumber us 20-1. Park's scar twisted as she smiled coldly. Good, saves us the trouble of looking for them. Captain, you know the saying, Commander. Fair fights are for people who plan to lose. The Draction opened fire. Beams of impossible energy slashed across space, cutting human frigates in half. Shields flickered, failed. A carrier exploded in a silent blossom of fire, the void filled with burning debris. Losses mounting, Brooks called out. We can't take this. Then hit harder, Park snapped. All railguns, all missiles, target the lead ships, make them bleed. The Defiance roared to life. Rail slugs tore across the dark, smashing into Draction hulls. Missiles streaked like burning comets, dodging enemy fire. One Draction ship erupted, its hull folding inward as if crushed by invisible hands. It wasn't enough. For every ship destroyed, 10 more pressed forward. On the Revenge, Morrison issued the order, deploy the net. Across the system, hidden human satellites activated. A lattice of gravitic mines and plasma fields flared, forming a deadly barrier. Draction ships plunged into it, their hulls screeching as they tore apart. But still they came. Sullivan whispered, Admiral, they don't fear death. They don't even hesitate. Morrison's jaw tightened. Then we teach them fear. On the ground, Calther Prime shook as drop pods slammed into the surface. Draction infantry spilled out tall, metallic forms with liquid silver skin and hollow eyes. Their weapons glowed with the same strange light as their ships, slicing through crystal buildings. Kari defenders opened fire. Energy blasts refracted off crystal walls, rail rifles thundered. For the first time in their history, Kari fought as soldiers. Zexai stood at the front, his crystalline hands gripping a captured Vorhan blade. He cut down a Draction soldier with a crack of shattering light. Hold the line, he roared, his voice carrying across the battlefield. At his side, Yexaisna fought with fury, her rifle flashing again and again. For Calther Prime. Above them, the Defiance plowed straight into the heart of the swarm. Captain, we're surrounded, Brooks shouted. Perfect, Park said. Fire everything. The ship unleashed hell. Railguns screamed, missiles detonated, plasma tore across space. Fighters swarmed out, darting like hornets, shredding Draction wings. The Defiance spun and rolled, dodging impossible beams by inches. But a blast punched through Deck 6. Fire roared, crew screamed. Damage control, Park barked. Keep us fighting. Brooks turned, his face pale. Captain, we can't hold much longer. Park's eyes were iron. Then we hold until there's nothing left to hold with. On the Revenge, Morrison's fleet locked into formation. Signal all ships, she ordered. Form the wall, protect the planet at all costs. Hundreds of human vessels tightened ranks, overlapping shields, creating a blazing barrier around Calther Prime. Draction fire hammered them. Ships burned, crews died, but the wall held. Admiral, Sullivan cried, enemy numbers still overwhelming. Morrison looked out at the storm. Then we bleed for every inch until they break. And then something shifted. Kari engineers activated the hybrid grid they had built with Tony Martinez. Crystal conduits across the planet pulsed, channeling energy upward. Beams of refracted light lanced into the sky, merging with human weapons. Shields strengthened. Weapons surged. On the Defiance, Rodriguez whooped over comms. Captain, the Kari power grid is feeding us. We've got 30% more firepower. Park grinned like a wolf. Then let's show them what happens when art and war hold hands. The Defiance fired again, slamming a rail slug through 3 Draction ships at once. On the surface, Draction forces pressed hard, their liquid metal bodies slicing through Kari lines. But human soldiers fought alongside them, rifles barking, grenades detonating. Dr. Walsh rushed through the field hospital, patching wounds as explosions shook the ground. Stay with me, she shouted to a wounded Kari, binding a fracture with trembling hands. Outside, Zexai led a desperate charge, crystalline blade flashing. Yexaisna fought at his side, her rifle empty, her fists swinging anyway. The ground ran with fire and shattered crystal, but the Kari did not break. In orbit, the tide began to turn. The human wall, bolstered by Kari energy, pushed forward. Draxian ships shattered under relentless fire. For the first time, the swarm faltered. Admiral Sullivan cried, "They're pulling back." Morrison's eyes blazed. "Don't let them, press the attack, drive them from this system." Human and Kari fire blazed across the stars, tearing the swarm apart. Dozens of Draxian ships exploded. The survivors twisted and vanished, slipping into the void as suddenly as they had come. The battle was over. The silence afterward was deafening. On the Defiance, smoke filled the bridge. Brooks slumped in his chair, exhausted. Park wiped blood from her forehead. "Report." "Half the fleet gone," Brooks whispered. "But they're gone too, we held." Park let out a long breath. "Then we won." On the surface, Zexai stood among the ruins, his crystalline form cracked and battered. Yexaisna limped beside him, her body scarred but unbroken. "They came to test us," Zexai said softly. "And we answered," Yexaisna replied. Later, in the council chamber, the galaxy argued again. Vexmal raged. "You see, this is what happens when humans fight. Now we face enemies older than time itself." Ambassador Price's voice rang like a hammer. "And if we hadn't fought, Calther Prime would be ash. The Draxian didn't come because of us. They came because this galaxy has been weak for too long. We stood, and because we stood, the Kari still live." Some delegates glared, others looked down in shame. But many, especially the smaller, weaker races, looked at humanity with new eyes. Not fear, not outrage, something else. Hope. On Calther Prime, rebuilding began again. Human and Kari engineers fused art and steel, creating towers that glowed with light and strength. Children of both species played in the streets. Soldiers trained together, their chants echoing under alien skies. Elder Morani stood beside Dr. Walsh in the garden. The elder's voice was quiet. "Change has come and it will not leave. We are no longer who we were, nor are you." Walsh smiled faintly. Maybe that's what survival means. In orbit, Admiral Morrison stood aboard the Revenge, watching stars burn. Captain Park joined her. "They'll be back," Park said. Morrison nodded. "Yes, and when they come, they'll find we're not alone anymore." She looked down at the glowing world of Calther Prime. "Because when Earth answered, we weren't just fighting for them. We were fighting for everyone who refuses to kneel." The two women stood in silence as the stars stretched on, filled with danger, filled with promise. Humanity had shown its fire. The galaxy would never forget. In the void beyond known space, a vast Draxian armada drifted. Countless needle ships whispered in unison, their hollow voices echoing through the dark. Humanity burns bright. They are dangerous. They are defiant. A pause. "Good, let the galaxy burn."